Great. We will for sure enjoy the rest of the day because we have another interesting, not panel, but presentation coming up. And I can already see Giorgia Dragoni. She's with us today. She's the Director of Research and Digital Identity at the Digital Innovation Observatories, and she will talk about digital identity and evolving ecosystem insights from the research of the Digital Identity Observatory of the Politecnico, there we go, di Milano. And I'm sure you will let us know what this is all about. We're thrilled to have you with us today. The next 20 minutes are yours. And for the audience, again, feel free to ask questions, write them in the chat, and I'm happy to forward them to our speakers again after they had their presentations. So thanks, Giorgia, for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can see my screen correctly. And can I start with my presentation, even if it's 1 minute in advance?
You can. We can see your screen, and this is German time, so feel free to use another minute. Then you have 21 minutes for your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much. In Italy, we used to wait 5 minutes on the scheduled time, so I'm very pleased here. We can be very on time. So I will try to do the same and use just the time I have available for the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be here today. I have the opportunity to do my presentation with you, and I will talk about the evolution within the digital identity ecosystems based on some insights that we collected from the research of the Digital Identity Observatory of the Politecnico di Milano. Before starting, just 10 minutes to introduce myself. My name is Giorgia Dragoni, as I said. I work as a researcher at the Politecnico di Milano at the Digital Innovation Observatories, and I deal with topics that are related to cybersecurity, data protection, and digital identity. Today, I'm here to speak about some of the research results that came from our Digital Identity Observatory. That is an observatory that I run. And we have started this observatory 3 years ago. So it has been 3 years that we are doing research now on this topic. What is this observatory and what are our aims? The main aim is of the Digital Identity Observatory is to develop and share knowledge on the potential that is offered by identification and authentication systems. We base our activity on empirical research, through which we try to also encourage, we can say, discussion between different market players coming from different industries. So here in this slide, you can find all the different research streams we are currently working on. And you can see that they range from an international point of view, an international vision, that is the one that I will focus on today, from a more specific vision on focus on the Italian market. We try to look very carefully at all the innovations that are coming on in this market, whether they are generated by the regulations and in the occasion that brought us here today, so the EIDAS review, or by technologies. So there is a very important stream that is related also to the innovative trends related to the technology. And I will tell you a little bit about it later. So let's get down to business and start right here from the European Digital Identity Wallet. That is the topic that I think has been faced in a lot of different speeches today. So I'm not telling you anything new. So as I think you all know, the European Digital Identity Wallet will be the new paradigm for digital identity issuing and management at a European level. So I think it is very, very interesting to see how the ecosystem will transform. And I think that the construction of this ecosystem is already beginning, is already going on. And we think that it will probably involve traditional players, more traditional players, but also it can include innovative players. So this is the point that I will share with you today. And why am I saying this concept? Am I underlying this concept? Because in the configuration of the digital identity wallet, I think that there are many points that can generate new business opportunities for different market players. For example, different data sources are expected, and it is not yet defined who will be in the role of wallet provider within each different state. So I was wondering, and me and my team were wondering, without just until now finding an answer. So I will ask you to discuss with me, and please to help us understand better, if you have any ideas, what changes are taking place in the digital identity ecosystem. So the aim of my presentation today is exactly this one, to give you some insights coming from our research in this area, and leave you with some open questions about what evolution we might face and we might be seeing in this new ecosystem that is becoming reality. The first thing that I want to tell you is the digital identity landscape is currently very heterogeneous, we can say, very composite. There are different kind of actors with very, very different strategies that are playing a role in this market. So on one hand, we have traditional players, traditional actors. For example, we have government agencies, we have financial institutions, we have operators coming from the telecommunication sectors, we have qualified trust service providers. They are the actors that have traditionally been in charge of the issuance and management of digital identity. But on the other hand, we cannot ignore what is happening in the world that is the one of the so-called big techs. They are entering the world of digital identity, and they are trying to build their own strategy with different value propositions in this area. So it's very important, according to us, to have a look also on what is happening in the big tech world. Let's start with the first part, with the traditional actors. The things that I would like to present here is just a few insights coming from our international case studies census. For a few years now, we have been collecting and monitoring the most interesting and most relevant digital identity systems at an international level, especially focusing on the European territory. Until now, we analyzed 83 different cases, 83 systems of certified digital identities. I would like to underline this word, so they are all certified digital identities. There are different kinds of digital identities that we found. You can see that 59 cases out of the 83 that we analyzed are foundational digital identities that are typically issued, recognized, and managed by a state, by a government agency for its citizens. And then we have 24 cases that we can define as functional digital identities, that are cases that are typically born in a specific business area and then have been made interoperable also for other service providers in other areas and in other sectors. Another way to cluster the different systems that we are analyzing is the different type of identity regarding the sector, the area, the identity deal with. The system can be clustered, for example, in e-government IDs that are identities that belong to the government domain. Then we can see some financial identities that are profiles of identity typically issued by financial institutions. And then we can have also some mobile identities that are typically linked to a mobile phone number, which is issued by a mobile operator. So we have a very different landscape. Another thing we can add is that for the most part, the system we have analyzed are centralized, meaning that there is a single identity provider that issue and manage the digital identity of the final users. However, we can see that ID systems, digital identity systems, are also moving towards new compositions of ecosystems. For example, we found 19 federated systems, an example of which is the Italian digital identity, that is SPID, Sistema Pubblico di Identità Digitale, that is based on a federation of public and private actors. And we also found 7 decentralized digital identity systems. So systems that are enabled by the use of decentralized technologies as the blockchain, and can enable new paradigms as, for example, the self-sovereign identity. So the different systems involve actors of different types. As you can see in the slide, there are government bodies in the first place in 63 cases out of 83, but also financial institutions that we already mentioned, and technology providers as telecommunications operator. So here we have our first key message. I will try to give you some different key messages. Traditionally, digital identities have been handled by government agencies, but we are seeing now that ecosystems are also progressively being populated by new actors, by different actors that can refer to different business areas also. Let's now focus on the right part, of the slide, that is the big techs. Here too, there are different kind of players that we can find. On one hand, for example, we have social networks and e-commerce platforms that typically enable the creation of an interoperable digital identity profile that can also be valorized in other for the access to other kind of services. On the other hand, we have also smartphone and operating system manufacturers. Almost all the smartphone manufacturers and operating system manufacturers we saw are migrating towards digital identity paradigms that are in the form of wallet, exploiting the direct control of the device, for example, or the large scale of users that they have as key assets. Then we also have software and cloud providers that are trying to move in this area as the other actors that we saw. So here we have the second of our key messages. Big techs are already working on digital identity wallets. They seem to have, we can say, key assets for the digital identity market, very important assets, and they are also gradually moving towards initiatives that also include certified identity management. We have here in this slide some different examples. So, for example, we have Apple that is working with several states in the USA to enable the possibility for their citizens to add their driver license or their state ID in the wallet that they provide on their iPhones or on their Apple Watches. We have WhatsApp that is partnering with Indian government to provide digital identity documents in app, as well as we have Samsung and Google, for example, that are allowing to include also certified data and attributes in their wallets. Another thing that I want to add, that in this scenario, we must also not forget that there is a whole sphere of innovative players that are the startups, who are also trying to introduce important innovations at the technological level and also in terms of business models, new business models. If we consider Italian and international startups that have been founded since 2016 and have received a last one funding in the last 2 years, so please note that I'm putting very strict constraints, so it is not an exhaustive number. We can find 2,061 startups in the digital identity market. These startups raised a total of over $1 billion funding and almost 6 million, 5.7 to be precise, funds each on average. We have to say that funding is very concentrated because 38 startups that are the 20% of the sample obtained 3/4 of the total funding. What are these startups working on? They have a value proposition that can be based only exclusively on digital identity, or that can be based also on synergetic trust services, we can say, such as digital signatures. In particular, startups that are working on digital identity only are the majority of the sample, and they are raising significant investment with an average funding per startup that is over $6.3 million. We can also say that startups are working in many different application areas. For example, they can develop solutions that are addressed to the financial market as the, for example, healthcare market or the education one. So they have an extremely wide-ranging value propositions. Without going on with other details, I can give you an answer at a question that you may be thinking about, that is, why are we looking at startups? Because startups are a good indication that the digital identity market is in turmoil in terms of technological innovation. So we have to consider also this factor. I'm coming to the final point. So we have seen different key messages. The first one is that we are going through a very delicate phase, and inevitably, eIDAS will change the current paradigms for digital identity. The second key message we saw that is that more and more players are looking with interest at the opportunities that have been generated by the digital identity wallet, and they are all traditional players, but also there are big techs that are interested in this kind of opportunity. The third key message is that there are also new players who are entering this market and bringing very important and significant technological innovations. But as I was telling you before, there are still many open questions. I've tried to insert here some examples, but there are a lot more questions that we can mention. The first one is, for example, who will be able to actually have a role in this new ecosystem that is developing? Will we see an alliance between different kind of actors, between traditional actors and the new one and the big techs? And how can the value that is generated by the innovators can be captured? How the collaboration between these different actors can be reality in this kind of market? I don't have the answers to these questions, so please feel free to give me some suggestions if you have any. But what is certain in this moment right now is that the digital identity wallet can represent a huge opportunity for convergence between different players. And here there is a very important point that we have to be careful to, that is, it is necessary to define the opportunities for each actor, because the important is trying to safeguard interoperability on one end, and on the other end, a simplified use for the users. That I think is the main aim that we have with this new paradigm. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure to be here with you. In this slide, you can find my email address. you can write to me. Please write to me if you want to add some comments, if you want to have some further information about our research, or if you want to discuss about this topic. Thank you very much.